All right, it is 6 p.m. on this June 4th, 2025. I'll call this town council work session and joint meeting with the Farmville Planning Commission to order. And welcome those in attendance, welcome those who are tuned in online. For those whom are here to speak at the public hearing, there is a sign-up sheet up front if you have not signed up. And I would note an amendment to the agenda to include a closed session following the declaration of personal interest under Virginia Code A.8, 2.2-3711 for consultation with legal counsel. But before we get there, I would invite the Farmville Planning Commission Chair, Dr. Miller, to call his meeting to order and do a roll call.
Gavel me in since I don't have a gavel. All right. I call the Town of Farmville Planning Commission meeting to order.
Ms. McKay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Amos.
Here.
Mr. Reed.
Here.
Mr. Dwyer.
Here.
Mr. Parrott.
Here.
Mr. Yolen.
Here.
Mr. Hunter.
Here.
Mr. Hardy.
Here.
And then can we have a roll call on the Farmville Planning Commission?
Mr. Crute.
Here.
Mr. Weiss. Dr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Patterson.
Here.
Mr. Davenport. Ms. Fraley. Here. Ms. O'Connor. Here.
Thank you. Next up is adoption of the agenda with the amendment to the agenda. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. At this point, I'd ask if there was a declaration of personal interest from any of the members of the joint bodies concerning anything on the agenda. Not hearing any, I would call on Mr. Dwyer to read us into a closed session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Farmville Town Council convene in closed meeting pursuant to the Code of Virginia in accordance with the provisions of paragraph A.8 of section 2.2-3711 for the consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Nothing in this subdivision shall be construed to permit the closure of a meeting merely because an attorney representing the public body is in attendance or is consulted on a matter.
Second.
Motion and second. Mr. Keg, we have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Amos.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Mr. Parrott.
Yes.
Mr. Yolen. Yes. Mr. Hunter.
Yes.
Mr. Hardy.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll retreat to the EOC and convene at conclusion of closed meeting. Thank you.
The Farmville Town Council has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Farmville Town Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Farmville Town Council hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Farmville Town Council.
Second.
Motion and second. Mr. McKay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer,
Yes.
Mr. Parrott,
Yes.
Mr. Yolen,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mrs. Amos.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the joint public hearing with the Planning Commission and Town Council concerning resolution number 2025-06-01 to amend a conditional use permit issued on June 13th, 2007 to Immigration Centers of America. And for those signed up to speak, public hearing is usually a 3-minute public comment period. Address the bodies as a whole, and please state your name and address when you walk up to the mic. You do have to speak into it directly for everybody to hear you. Mr. McKay, do we have anyone signed up, please?
I have an email from Allison Cruz.
Will you read that into the record, please?
Dear Farmville leadership, please deeply consider the decision to willingly expand the Immigration Centers of America in our community. I do not support amendments or resolutions doing such. Please reflect with your hearts. Blessings to all.
Thank you. Anyone else signed up to speak?
Lee Lunsford has sent an email.
You can read that into the record, please.
I am concerned about this resolution. I am concerned because the Trump administration is not following due process. I do not believe our town should be associated with locking up immigrants or United States citizens without due process. Can we guarantee that all individuals brought to the facility in Farmville will have gone through due process? I hope that you will carefully weigh this resolution.
Anyone else?
Mary Clem has sent an email.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I oppose the expansion of Farmville Detention Center. I am concerned about adequate staffing, also adequate sensitivity training for the staff. I worked there I worked there years ago and witnessed rude behavior toward the detainees and a lack of respect for different customs and religious practices. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Joanna Penick has sent an email. I am writing as a former resident and current land and homeowner in Farmville to voice my opposition to expanding the Immigration Detention Center in Farmville. This will be one more thing to put Farmville on the wrong side of history, and can we really afford any more marks in that category? As someone who spent the first 18 years of my life in Farmville and who still is invested in the town, I implore you to consider denying this request. These centers are poorly managed and dehumanizing. There have been reports of suspicious deaths and illnesses at this particular center since its inception. Why add further blight to Farmville's already sullied name?
You got another one, Ms. McKay?
Ashley Miller has sent an email. I'm a resident of Prince Edward County. I am absolutely in opposition to this detention center coming to our little town. This town is a town I love and one I call home, and it is morally reprehensible what the current administration is doing in regards to immigration enforcement. I don't want this stain on my town and home. I don't want to be part of this. Not to mention, do you know what happens when you treat people like criminals? They become one. It will undoubtedly make our town less safe and hurt any chances of visitors from other areas. I don't want this and will not sit by idly as this happens to our town. I know very many in the town share my feelings and concerns. I implore you to hear your residents and say no to this, hopeful for a future where no one seeking a better life is treated as a criminal. I have an email from Misty Dufresne. Since I am unable to attend the meeting tonight, this will discuss the proposal of expanding the private detention holding facility for adult immigrant detainees. I wanted to inform you that I do not support the expansion being proposed. Please take into consideration the thoughts of the people who live in Farmville and the Farmville area, while additionally considering that the current federal government has not been detaining immigrants in a legal fashion. Too often recently have we seen immigrants, many of them here in the country legally, being detained by federal agents and being sent away without due process. These are actions that I do not support, and nor do I want our town to have anything to do with. Thank you for your time. Faye Green has signed up to speak.
Ms. Green?
Ms. Green, you have 3 minutes.
Faye Green, 207 First Avenue. And after hearing these emails, they covered pretty much what I wanted to say. But I do have, I guess I want it to be on record that though we already have the ICE Center, we can't make it go away. I wish we could. I wish there were an amendment that we could add to this request and totally get rid of it, but we can't do that. But I do hope that maybe there's some way that we can make it, certainly not make it larger and make it less of a part of Farmville. Is there some way we could just to pick up the whole facility and put it in Cumberland County or somewhere else just to get rid of it? I know that's not possible, but I hope when you look at this amendment and if there's any flaw in it or you see any catch anywhere where you could do something to get rid of this flaw in our community, I would certainly wish that you could do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Chuck Green.
Good evening, all. I'm Chuck Green, 207 First Avenue, and I'm speaking against the proposal for the expansion of the ICE facility. You know, ICE and the Department of Homeland Security were created in 2002 as a direct result of the 9/11 attack. And that was an important part of a national defense process. But ICE, immigration control, is part of that process, but it's expanded so far beyond, I think, its original intent of somewhat controlling our borders until it's a national embarrassing harassment of immigrants. Perhaps some are illegal, but it's been proven that they're not, by and large, criminals. Studies have shown that greater than 50% of them have no record, and they're an asset to the country. They're part of our workforce. If you talk to anybody who's in construction or in farming, without our Hispanic immigrants, they would fail. Excuse me. The Department of Homeland Security, ICE Department, was nearly eliminated in 2022 under the Biden administration because of a huge millions, maybe billions of dollars cost overrun. But somehow they garnered money from other areas, money that could have been used for beneficial processes, education, health support, any number of ways to help the poor and the downtrodden and the immigrants. And I think our goal should have been to help these people to become valid and respected citizens of the country, not to harass them and send them off to some unknown place. We don't know what goes on out there. I don't think the town of Farmville has direct, I may be wrong, but insight into the day-to-day processes of these facilities. They can come to someone's door, these agents, and knock on the door and arrest someone, but that's illegal. They have to have a warrant signed by a judge, and a lot of people don't know that. The advice to them is don't open your door. They have the right of habeas corpus.
Mr. Green, your time's up.
Okay, thank you very much. Please consider the detrimental effect of this facility.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Ms. McKay?
No one else has signed up.
All right. We will move and close the joint public hearing and move into, I guess I'll open the floor to the Planning Commission to begin their deliberations. Should we have an introduction to why this is before us?
Mr. Mayor, typically we have one of the staff members hit the highlights of the briefing, just to accentuate kind of what we need to focus on, but also for the edification for people, the members of the public who may not have had that access to that document in the packets. So if you're comfortable with that, Ms. Atkins Austin, would you mind?
I think Mr. Davis.
Or Mr. Davis, would you mind hitting the highlights of the staff report, please, sir?
Yeah, most of the staff report is the same as the public hearing notice. It lays out the time frame of what occurred on this issue. That is, in 2007, there was the approval. Actually, there was a code change in the zoning ordinance to allow detention centers with a conditional use permit that was only for level 1 detainees. In 2011, and obviously after that fact, the center began operation. In 2011, they came back, the Immigration Center of America came back to amend, ask for the code to be amended based on some changes, is our understanding, from immigration, and that was in 2011. So the code was changed, which means that the conditional use permit that was existing needed to be amended as well. That was a joint meeting of the Planning Commission as well with the council. Both parties, it seems, from the material that we have from those meetings, that felt that that had been accomplished with that meeting. However, the actual the code was changed so that it allowed all detainees, all adult detainees. What didn't actually occur was that the conditional use permit was amended by both bodies. And so this came to light to the current staff when the current owners, Abion, asked for a zoning certification letter. And when we provided that letter, they did not agree with the letter because we were going based off the 2007 conditional use permit. And so that's how we came up with the records to show that this conditional use permit should have been done in 2011. And so this is, we're trying to make our records properly meet what was done in that year.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Do any members of the Planning Commission have any questions for Dr. Davis? Mr. Connor?
Only question I have is, I understand we're trying to get things aligned, the original, the zoning amendment that was done in the CUP, but the zoning ordinance says private or public detention or holding facilities for adult immigration detainees with a conditional use permit. What we're looking at now is to have a conditional use permit that says private detention or holding facilities. Is there a reason why the public is not included this time in the conditional use? And is that going to cause a problem down the line?
I'm being called upon to answer that one. I don't think that's going to be an issue. The facility that is currently operating is a private facility, and my suspicion is I think that there's, if I'm not mistaken, that's the only issue that's before the Planning Commission and before Council. So I don't think anyone has asked for us to broaden that to public or private. In this particular case, the facility that's operating is private. And so that's just the issue that's before us.
I just don't want us to come back, in another few years and say, oh, we've left public out, so.
I don't think that's an issue.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. Davis, just to confirm so two things. One, to confirm the way I read this, really all we're doing is we're striking public and level 1 from the existing CUP. So that's question 1. And question 2, this amendment to the CUP does not create any situation in which it directly authorizes an expansion or any significant changes to how they operate today.
So let me start off by also stating that they've been operating since 2011 to today based on what they thought occurred in 2011. So to answer that question, I used that as that they've been operating for 14 years under the premise, and obviously the town under that premise, that it was for the detention center to have only adult detainees.
Other questions from the commissioners? Customarily, we also invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to speak if they have any amplifying information. Is there any Williams Mullen or anyone from Albion that care to speak?
They do have a legal representative here.
Would you care to speak, sir?
If anyone has any questions, happy to answer.
Does any of the planning commissioners have any questions for the applicant's attorney?
Can you describe the varying levels of detainees? I know in 2007 it was focused on level 1. 2011 we removed reference to that. So can you just describe the varying levels?
So tonight we're not really prepared to speak to the level of detainees. We can get that information from our client if needed. We're just attempting to clarify the conditional use permit essentially. That's something we could obtain some information on if you would like.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions for staff or for the applicant, we'll kind of pivot to the deliberation. Again, we're focused on aligning some language in the recommendation that's under consideration right here. So let's go ahead and open it up to, does anyone have any comments, observations? Would they like to begin?
So as I understand it, the task of our body is to view this from the perspective of land use. And from that perspective, it's clarifying the CUP in relation to the ordinance that was approved in 2011 and seems to be pretty straightforward. So Mr. Chair, I would make a recommendation to a motion that town council approve the resolution.
Mr. Crudup moved to recommend to town council approval of resolution number 2025-06-01. Do I have a second? Ms. O'Connor has seconded the motion to recommend the town council approval of the resolution in front of us. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, Ms. McKay, would you please conduct a roll call vote on the recommendation of approval to town council for resolution number 2025-06-01?
Mr. Crute? Aye. Dr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Patterson?
Aye.
Ms. Fraley? Aye. Ms. O'Connor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I think we've concluded our business, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. And just for further reference to some of the comments shared prior in the public hearing, the town was a government intermediary in the agreement with the ICE facility for 13 of those, the last 14 or so years, is not currently. And this is a more of a administrative fix of an error that occurred in 2011. But on its face, does not, Mr. Crute did ask a question, does not expand the facility, what's happening tonight.
No action tonight does anything to the facility. That's the owner's prerogative of whether they stay the way that they are in the future or whether they seek to expand.
Just wanted to make sure that got clarified. And Mr. Crute had asked, and I didn't remember it being explicitly clarified. So, yes, this is a little bit of a cleanup for an organization that we at this time don't have a partnership with. But I think in 2011 there was a misstep, and this is a correction of that misstep, or at least that's what's proposed. And so I would open the floor to any discussion on the council dais concerning requested approval of resolution number 2025-06-01. And if there is no discussion, I would entertain a motion on approval of resolution number 2025-06-01, given the recommendation from the Planning Commission tonight to approve.
I make a motion to approve the request of resolution 2025-06-01 to amend conditional use permit issued on June 13th, 2007 to ICA Farm Bill.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion at this time? Ms. McKay, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Yolen?
I'm going to abstain.
Can I get the reason for the abstention for the record?
Because I feel like it?
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mrs. Amos,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. Next up on the agenda is a joint discussion with the Planning Commission concerning the comprehensive plan update. Do we have a walk-in on this? Any intro to this
Yeah.
discussion?
Yeah, this should be really short, brief for this evening. Ms. Atkins and I need to, Ms. Austin and I stopped doing the long abbreviated one. The discussion with council previously, I think it was our last meeting, about moving forward in our review of the comprehensive plan. It's been 5 years to do that jointly instead of the planning commission coming up and having ideas, the council having ideas, and then trying to mirror those together and having that conversation as a group together. And the council approved that. What we would like to do is, as we move forward, we're going to go chapter by chapter because that was recommended in the council's retreat. And so some chapters we may bring together, which we'll let you know, and then others will be only because those chapters are probably they're not immaterial, but they will have, they're all just facts that need to be updated, such as population and all those types of things. The meat of it, I guess, we would like for all of you to look at now and begin looking at it by chapters. And for the Planning Commission, anything that really stands out that you think needs to be, or you would like to have a greater discussion about XYZ topic, if you could just share with Ms. Austin and what you're looking at of why you want to change, or what you think a good change would be. And then for the council, it's the same, if you could share that with me for each of those chapters. And that way we can, at those meetings, instead of just randomly coming up with things at the meeting, we can kind of narrow those things down from each body to have those discussions. And it would be, I think, more better use of our time if we did it that way in those conversations. So if you all can begin before you go to bed, and if it puts you to sleep, we apologize. But if you can begin doing that reading throughout and making note in those chapters of what you would want to look at and how you think, or ideas of changes, that would be beneficial. And I think we'll look at starting actually going by chapter at the, I think we said if we had a heavy work session and they didn't have a heavy planning commission meeting, then we would do it at their meeting date, their regular meeting date. If our work session is light, then we would invite them to be at our work session. So what I also want to say is that we'll provide those dates ahead of time for everyone. We'll be aware of the material that we'll have and what dates need to be for those meetings, if that works for everybody. And then if we see at one of the meetings that it didn't work as well, then we'll go back to the drawing board and see if there's a better way to do it. If that seems amenable.
Any questions or commentary?
I'm hearing you correctly. You're going to provide us kind of a general timeline and what chapters you'd like to focus on in the near future?
Yes, we'll do that. We'll go in order, but I mean, like the first few is more of just data changes in it. So you can go ahead and probably skip some of those and begin reading the other ones, so you'll be ahead of the game when those months come.
All right, so just, are we looking begin this process midsummer, late summer, early fall? Like what's our-
Most likely, the goal is to start in August.
Start in August.
The comprehensive plan is a guideline going forward, correct? There's no real teeth to it like our ordinances and zoning restrictions, correct?
I mean, it's not law, but you do want to follow it as a guide, yes.
And the let me try and work on that one more time, sorry. Specificity, that's where we're going to work on the ordinances and zoning, make sure they're all aligned, correct? We're not going to do that right now. We're talking about the comprehensive plan, I understand that, but haven't we in the past run into some situations where one doesn't quite line up with the other?
Yeah, we've had to make some amendments to the comprehensive plan. If you change, like the biggest one we've changed is the future land use map. And that's only because you've rezoned property in town. So that's not, I wouldn't say that's a big issue. You would do that on, I mean, that's something you would traditionally do when you're rezoning property. But as far as the zoning ordinance is concerned, other than those, I don't think anything materially has changed in the comprehensive plan greatly other than the land use, the future land use map.
So what we talked about earlier about PUDs going forward, that's something we talked about in the comprehensive plan before, but we've never actually put pen to paper in establishing one for the town, correct?
That would change both, correct.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion at this time? All right, so we'll give an August start date. Is that accurate? And begin to work our way through it and see if the piggybacking on meetings works out. Thankfully, this is a pretty collegial group up here, so hopefully it'll be all right. At this point, if there's no other business to come before the joint meeting, I would invite the Planning Commission members to call their night early.
Do I hear a motion to follow our sage mayor's advice and adjourn? All right, Mr. Crute has made a motion. Do I hear a second? Second. Ms. Fraley was quick on the draw. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone want to stick around longer? All right. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate you being here. All right, and as our esteemed colleagues from the Planning Commission vacate the chambers, we will move into the next item on our agenda, which is discussion on Prince Edward Volunteer Rescue Squad. Are you walking us into this, Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I'll start it off. We at our last meeting, we had heard from a representative of the Volunteer Rescue Squad, and then I made some comments, and part of that was about funds that we had provided, but also the EMS levy and those types of things. And I felt that to do everyone some justice, I've asked the county here this evening, Mr. Stanley is here, to kind of explain what about the EMS levy, but also the state code in reference to EMS agencies. In that, I don't want to steal his thunder, but the state code is very specific in that cities and counties are the ones that ultimately decide the operation of EMS entities. Towns do not. And I'll give you an example. When we began first responder out of the fire department, the Prince Edward County Board of Supervisors had to grant the town department in order to do that service. So I've asked Mr. Stanley here to kind of go over those topics. But then I also, a council member asked that we talk with the Prince Edward Volunteer Rescue Squad about financials and the ability for our finance director to review those. And so Ms. Moore has some comments for you all based on that to share. So, Mr. Mayor, if you would welcome Mr. Stanley, it'd be appreciated.
County Administrator, Mr. Doug Stanley, welcome to the microphone. We kind of paid you back for that one day that you had Scott up there upstairs for a while.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I appreciate, first of all, I say thank you for support of the ICA facility. They are one of the largest taxpayers in the community. Last year, over $180,000 in taxes to Prince Edward alone. One of the largest employers, over 200 employees, 60 of which live in Prince Edward as of last year. Yeah, there's lots of issues about the immigration policies and things, but just focusing on the facility, which is what we as now the contract holder in the town is the, I guess, the host, because they're in your locality, is making sure that the facility runs correctly. I just wanted to say with the contract, I have the ability to go in that building 24 hours a day. If there is any member of council would ever like a tour of the facility, I will coordinate with them and make sure that we can get in and take a walk. But I want to make sure the facility is run well, the folks are treated well, and all those things. So I just wanted to say that that offer is there if you ever want to go in. I appreciate the invite. We put a little bit of information. I do apologize. Trey Powell had to leave early. He's coaching softball tonight. But, of course, Trey's wife, Sally, is the EMS captain at Meharrin and who also provides service. Scott's right. Board of Supervisors, basically, you have to have permission to operate, the license to operate in the county. And as a resident of the end of Price Drive, I appreciate the fact that I'm now in your coverage area, and the town does provide backup resources there. So there is a close, I'll say, relationship between the county and our agencies, whether it's Peavers or Meharrin. As you know, up till about 20, Pamplin used to be an agency that had license to operate in Prince Edward, and that has changed the scope a little bit. I've also included a copy of our County Emergency Services Response Plan that we have adopted as of last year that also talks about how everybody is supposed to work together and provide an emergency response. And the other piece, as Scott and I talked about, I've provided a spreadsheet showing the use of levy money and other county funding. So you'll look on the spreadsheet. Since FY19, Peavers has received $2,453,496.72 in support from Prince Edward County. That will be bolstered by another about $42,000 that our Public Safety Committee has recommended to approve. They had some HVAC and some generator issues this past year that we're going to be helping them out. And I will say that our agency formulas, 75% of the levy, well, take a step back. Each year, $100,000 off the top goes to a reserve fund. Now, idea is eventually to have $500,000 in reserve so that if an ambulance goes down, we have a reserve fund that can help step in and take care of that. That's the pot. It's got 300-some thousand in it that's paying for the HVAC and the generator repair at Peavers. Take the $100,000 off the top, Peavers gets 75% of what's left each year, 20% for Meharrin and 5% for Hampton-Sydney, who has a response unit. So from an annualized basis, you can see how much Peavers has received from the county. Of course, COVID was we helped a couple of ambulances. That was a big, almost $600,000 in FY '21, and $300,000 almost for Meharon. But we also have our basic annual support. For FY '25, Peavers got $98,000. They also got $10,000 in insurance supplement to help them offset their insurance cost. We do that now for both agencies. So at least hopefully that'll give you a little bit of an idea of what the county does financially. But this year is going to be a little bit of a windfall for our agencies because we kept the EMS levy has two parts to it. It's 1 penny of real estate, and it's 10 cents, I believe, of the personal property. But we don't have to equalize that penny. So that will gain value. They average about 37%. So they'll see a little bit of a bump this year in their real estate portion of the EMS levy. Happy to answer any questions on the financial side and certainly the operational side. Having been in a community that went from 2 part-time firefighter EMTs to manning Five Station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I've been through that kind of painful growth process. We are, and we've got a meeting coming up hopefully this Friday. We're going to be talking with Peavers about trying to maybe redistribute some of our resources. Maybe on our, we've got a 24-hour truck and a 12-hour truck a day for the daytime, maybe shifting resources during the day out to the prospect to try to pick up on some of the calls we have out in the rural area. As a test case to see the impact, they would still be available to come back into town when because about half of our EMS calls are back inside town limits. But when we had a call a couple weeks ago, 28 minutes, person was DOA. It's tough when it takes almost a half an hour to get out to the county. And, we realize, I think that whether you're a Prince Edward citizen living in the town of Farmville or one that lives in Darlington Heights or Rice or Prospect, we all deserve the same support if we can provide it. But we just got to figure out how. In the long run, it's going to mean putting more dollars to it, right? Or at the end of the day. And we're hopeful to be able to work with Peavers and Meharon and our other agencies to be able to enhance that coverage and give everyone the coverage that we deserve. But with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions at this time from council for County Administrator Doug Stanley?
And I'll be happy to stay around if anything comes up later, Mr. Mayor. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Appreciate you. The floor is open for any, oh, Ms. Moore, I forgot. I am sorry.
That's okay. So I looked at their fiscal year 24 audit and then their current profit and loss statement that went through like May 15th. And based on review of those and some discussions that I had with them, a couple of things. In fiscal year 24, they had a loss of $131,393. For fiscal year 25 through May 15th, they have a loss projected at $7,504. But I can tell you by year end, that'll be way more because I know that once they have their audit, they will have some journal entries that will be made that's going to drive that loss back up. I can tell you that for their collections of insurance, they do soft billing. In fiscal year 23, they only collected 45% of what they billed. In fiscal year 24, it dropped to 43%, and so far this year, the projections at 41%. When I talked to them about getting better collections, they're very adamant that they don't want to do anything but soft billing because they feel like that it would be the wrong message, if they went and took somebody's house, if people didn't pay, and I think everybody would probably agree with that. So, so their revenue is not getting any better on their collections. It's actually starting to decline every year. Also, I want to point out that their fleet is aging and they have some equipment that's really expensive that's going to end up being outdated and probably failing and they have to replace. Some examples is they have two Lucas CPR devices that are about $18,000 a piece. Cardiac monitors, they're $60,000 a piece and they're nearing the end of their life. And then they have unit computers that use electronic patient care and they're $25,000 in total and they're all out of warranty. Also, they had some new regulations that came up this year. For a drug box, that used to be you could go to the hospital and they would replenish your drug box. That's not the case anymore. And if you talk to any EMS service, they will tell you that that's been very costly to them. Just to replace, it's about $3,000 to stock just 2 of the ACL boxes that they have. So they did get support from Longwood and Hampton-Sydney this past year for the CARES program, I believe. So that's good. But basically, they're trying to be proactive. They realize that their money is dwindling away and that there's going to be things that's going to come up in the future that they need to be able to pay for. And so I think they're just trying to be proactive and making sure everybody's aware, hey, we have some red flags we need to consider, and we want you guys to be aware of it as well. That's at least the impression I got when talking to them.
Any questions for Ms. Moore?
I don't know if you can answer, but when you say 41% and 43%, 45% on soft billing, is that strictly for individuals, or does that include, and I may have to be somebody in the rescue squad, does that include when they bill insurance for it?
I think the way I understood it, and they can come up here and correct me, is they bill the insurance, and so they're getting that collection. But then, you have your copay. And so they send a letter, they send another letter, but that's it. So I think the rest of it's like the copays and stuff that, or maybe somebody wasn't insured.
That's fine, and I understand that, I get it.
Yeah, it seems like, I would guess that for a rural rescue squad, like 50 to 60% write-off is probably somewhat normal.
I was texting my old county, which is rural county, most of our rural county. This year they're at 62%. We do probably have a little bit higher, a little moderate income residents. It may be work. We changed collection companies, and they were still soft billing. So I don't know. It's one thing to look at, but
You're right. It seems like
50-60%.
I understand. Right. It's not unusual, and I understand the soft billing, but it does strike the thought like, okay, 5 to 10% change there could make a pretty big impact.
Doug, don't go anywhere.
Okay. Yep.
So I really don't want to see our squad fail, and it seems like they're not going to be sustainable for so long. I saw what happened in Nottoway. So they got bids for private, correct me if I'm wrong, and the private was outrageous for them to be able to afford private. So after they meet with you on Friday, could we, if it's okay with council, could you get with Scott and perhaps come up with something have another mutual meeting like this, and we talk about what we could continue to do to collaborate and continue to help our squad in the future?
Absolutely. You were there, Sally, when I went. Ms. Amos last year was trying to sit down, and I appreciate we've got a new director, and we're going to sit down. We've already got a meeting set, so I'm excited to be able to do that. Absolutely. We can't let Beavers fail.
And we can't afford to go private.
It would be, honestly, if it was up to me, it'd probably have to be county run before I go private. And I'm just saying, and I've been there and I've done that. But I'd much rather like the status quo if we can support Beavers up. And I appreciate that they've already made overtures to be open book, and sit down and talk numbers. I'm happy to do that. Hopefully the funding that's going to get approved next week will help you the current fiscal year, that $42 or so thousand. Hopefully will help the current year. you've got to look at it moving forward. Hopefully, the boost in the levy. Maybe there'll have to be an additional increase in the levy. I think I'll speak for the board. I think we need to try to work on service levels in Lake County as well. But I think working together, there's an opportunity to do all that. Them failing is not an option. I think we all agree on that.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate Mr. Parrott's efforts and getting Julie and Dr. Davis to get Julie Moore to take a look at their books. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks.
I've got a question too. So one of the other things that Warren, they were looking at doing is billing for non-traditional calls, treated and not transported diabetics, ALS assessment, things like that. Are y'all doing that? Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah, and certainly getting those Medicare, getting the rates up certainly would help us as well, because the cost of doing business, i.e. the cost of your salaries and your fuel and equipment, and certainly the cost of the ambulance has not kept up with the billing rates. And that's something that we can't fix, and we need help from folks up the food chain. Well, okay. For most agencies, that's right. But yeah, but I'm happy to come back after we've had a chance to sit down and talk about that.
I got a question for whoever wants to speak for the squad. On your squad care, do you just send out one mailing a year? And how else do you advertise it? Because I've had several people ask me about it, or I've talked to about it with several people and they know nothing about it.
A direct mail campaign that we use a third party to.
Do you have other ways to advertise it? Because like I said, some people are telling me they know nothing about it, and they go online and they sign up. I tell them how to do it, but it's not reaching some people. Is what I'm saying.
They can sign up on our website. We do the direct mail and then Facebook advertising. So.
Scott, if you'd be willing to do it, I'd be happy to help push that from county Facebook if we could both do that and help push that out to the.
I mean, it could go in the flyers that we have for the water bill, something like that, or whatever the county sends out. It's just that we need to get more people knowledgeable about it, and maybe they will sign up.
Julie, is there any
Any other questions?
were you able to look at what they get for the cares based on what, obviously that's guaranteed money if somebody pays that, right? And then whatever their insurance covers. Is there a way to look at what is still where they are losing from not getting, other than what is paid by the resident and then whatever the insurance pays? Is there a way to look at that from a basis of needing, and I'm not trying to tell them what to do by any means, but is there a way to look at to say we need to raise that over time in order to cover more costs, to recoup more costs? I'm just, that's a question about CARES in itself for.
Thank you for your time. Just to clarify that, on our profit and loss through May 15th, it shows that we have taken in our squad care income is $88,000. Well, 60,000 of that is from 30,000 from Hampton-Sydney and 30,000 from Longwood. So $28,000 came in that the residents of this county paid $50 per household. So we did have expenses to send that out of 4,056. So out of that 28,000, 4,000 was the direct mail campaign. So out of that, once they pay $50, all that is ensuring is whatever their insurance company doesn't pay, we will not bill them for their balance of out-of-pocket expense. So if their bill was $650 and their insurance paid $450, that $50, so we're still losing money on that side. So it's not $50 when we went up to $50 a number of years ago. It was, people really got upset in the county because it had been 20 for so many years, and then it had been 25, and then we went to 35, and then we went to 50. Whether that's something that we can go up on, but then we also hear a lot, well, why are you doing this squad care when we pay the EMS levy? So we hear all of that with going up on the squad care amounts. So, but any other questions?
Thanks, you answered mine.
Any additional discussion on squad care at this time? Sounds like we'll have some additional information from county administrator in the future to continue this conversation.
I just wanted to share with council that what I also wanted to show is that all of us are county residents. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, we when the topic came up at the last meeting was, yeah, we gave extra for X amount of years to try to get that more sustainability, right? But we're using town taxpayer money on top of what they're already paying to the county. And so what I'm trying to say is that we also do other things that is saving them money. And that is fuel, that is, we kept doing the maintenance, we'll continue doing the maintenance. And if that price needs to go up, we're just doing the budget based on, just like any other department. Like if in this year you didn't use 50,000 and you only used 30, then we're going to probably move that down some because we can use that money somewhere else. But if in that year something happens, obviously we usually do have additional funds that we could come back and ask to move that in order to do some major repair. So I just want that from an administrative perspective, I think we are assisting the rescue squad in the way that we can, but also not using all the tax base that we have from town/county residents. And I wanted you to know we actually have zero control of EMS agencies in that regard.
All right, so we'll have more information in the future. Continue the discussion. Is there any additional discussion on this at this time?
And just a general question on fundraising. How much fundraising do y'all do now?
Squad care, obviously, earlier, fundraiser, and then staffing, like outside events that we go through.
Thank you.
All right.
I'd just like to say thank you very much for showing us all the ins and outs of what goes on with your operation and cost, and to where we can have a better understanding of what's going on and the challenges that you're facing.
Yes. It does look, to the points made, the next 5 years, it looks like there's some assets that will need some financial backing to rectify, and it helps to be cognizant of that going forward. So we appreciate you opening up the books, and for Mr. Doug Stanley to be here tonight to fill us in on his perspective and to take the time out of his night to be here. We really appreciate it. With that, I'd move to the town manager's report. Mr. Davis?
For this week, it's going to be short and sweet, and then I'll give you a little bit more next week. But Connie Construction's in town. They're milling, and they'll be paving over the next several weeks on those streets that are allocated for this year. And so we are assisting them as whatever they need, riser rings, those types of things. But you'll see, if you have some residents, actually, they're majority in Mr. Hunter and Ms. Amos's ward this year. So you can tell them that don't be upset when they tell them they can't park on the street. It's for a good reason.
All right, go around the room. Mr. Hardy?
Yeah, on that note, can we, I know it's in the plan and people have the opportunity to go look and see what streets are going to be done, but if streets are being paved and they are going to be involving businesses, can we please let them know with a little bit of notice ahead of time that their street is going to be closed so they can make plans for either A, notifying people on social media and things like that. That's my only concern there. I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Hunter?
All right. Couple of things I'd like to ask about. Of course, the grass is growing, so South Virginia Street, 416, and it's the one on the 300 block. 416 is just a normal one. I think it's 416, right? The corner that we always have to. I don't know the address, but I know that. Yeah. Just to get somebody to try to take care of those. The other thing I wanted to mention was I was informed about camp. And people were asking in reference to, I think the Y had a 6 to 7 year old camp and they're not doing it this year. Told them it may be too late. We do 6 to 7, but not all the weeks of our camp, which is understandable. But I don't know if the Y is not going to do it anymore. But it's just something for us to be cognizant of in the future. We may have to expand our camp because those kids are growing, but they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, we were maxed out pretty early this year because we did it online, and people signed up relatively quickly. I guess the word's out that they have some fun and travel different places and have fun. We're somewhat limited because of the number of people we can fit on 2 buses. And that means that you would need more staff as well, and transportation. So that would be something to work towards and try to plan out in the future. But for our capabilities right now, we're pretty maxed out with the number that we do camp for.
Thank you.
Mr. Young?
Thank you very much, Mayor. Trees. We talked about what happened up on Park Avenue and the removal of the trees for the paving purposes and all. And I know we're going to start addressing perhaps replacing trees like that get taken down, that are necessarily taken down, but at the same time, they're beneficial to the environment and to the property owners adjacent to them. So possibly giving them notice that there's trees that are going to need to come down next to their properties, and that the town might look into or possibly replacing them with less expensive but better maintained trees, better trees that aren't going to mess with our infrastructure. Okay? Trees again. This came up when we had our employee party the other day, the Public Works representation. We were sitting under that grand pavilion over on Wilkes Lake Island. I noticed that the wonderful trees out near the water park, out near the the splash pad. Thank you, the splash pad. A lot of people are taking advantage of those trees in the shade they provide right now. The problem being, of course, is they're small trees and they're a little vulnerable to that kind of thing like that. I was wondering can we broach the subject of perhaps putting even a temporary like shelters or anything of that nature in that area that can shade people in the sun from the August months and the warm months and stuff, so they're not leaning against the trees or damaging the trees by accident, of course, and giving them a chance to grow to full fruition and provide the shade that they're designed to do, hopefully.
Yeah, we did it last year. We put up one of our larger tents, or mid-sized tents, I should say, not the larger one. And a storm came through and destroyed it.
I'm sorry?
A storm came through and destroyed it. So we're amenable to anybody that wants to bring their own tent, the little ones that you can do. That's not a problem, as long as they're not, they can bring those to put up. But as far as putting them up and taking them down every day, I don't know that we have the capability to do that, so that they wouldn't get destroyed if a storm came through.
Okay, if not temporary, then what about a permanent structure of some sort, similar to the one on Wilkes Island, Wilkes Lake Island, excuse me?
Yeah, we can look into that.
Thank you. What's happening at the farmer's market? Okay. There was interesting.
What do you want to know about the farmer's market?
I'm sorry, I saw some seriously heavy equipment working in there today, and they were doing something with the support beams, and I thought I'd ask about it because it's kind of in my ward, so I was wondering what was happening.
I'll figure that out, but I don't know of anything in the farmer's market as far as our structure.
The actual building itself is our structure, right?
Correct.
There was something going on there today, so we'll check into it.
Yeah, because majority of the crew was laying. Majority of the crew that would have been doing some of those things, any type of construction, would have been on Park Avenue, getting ready for the concrete to come tomorrow to pour the sidewalk, part of the sidewalks and curb and gutter, and also doing some of the manhole riser rings. So I'll look into it and let you know.
Thank you. There was definitely a crew there, and they were parked inside. The vehicle was parked inside the farmer's market, and they had a whole bunch of what looked like equipment attached to one of the main beams in there. So I don't know who's responsible for that, but I was curious. And lastly, promise. Any idea of when we can get the wiped out bus shelter in front of the library replaced? Would that be on the person who destroyed it, or do we have to bite the bullet on that one?
So we did go through and look, and correct me if I'm wrong, they were uninsured, so it does fall on us. And but we are moving a bus shelter that is not in use anymore at Longwoods campus because they don't use that route. So pretty soon we'll be transferring that one that's not in use to that location.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Parrott?
Not a thing, sir.
Mr. Dwyer?
The only thing, I've been looking at this for a while, and maybe Chucky's seen it too, but as you're going up Griffin Boulevard, heading in the CVS direction, and you turn right on Edmond Street, first house on the left is the house that had a fire maybe a year or two ago. Nobody's living there, but the grass is out of control, and I understand why, but I'm just saying that it's an eyesore. Thank you.
Mr. Reed?
And to echo that, that's not the only area. That's not the only area in town that has become an eyesore. We have quite a few vacant lots that need loving care, so someone need to look at it. And I also have a question about the heavy equipment at the Scope Building on Griffin. Do you know anything going on?
No, that's a private property, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, the residents wanted to know because they see heavy. They don't know whether it was being demolished or just park there or what, so check on it, please.
In any of the tall grass, feel free to call the community development office and give Ms. Watkins the addresses, and
I'll do that.
and they'll send somebody out to measure it and get it on the list.
So we don't have anyone that roams through town of like demolished grass and buildings and?
We do, the building official right now, when he has the opportunity, but it's one of the changes, hopefully in the new fiscal year, is when we get all of the water meters replaced, is that we will hopefully have personnel from water meter readers that will be able to do that part of the time and also do some other things.
Ms. Amos?
I noticed, I presume Scott probably can tell this, the Downtown Partnership, are they responsible for those beautiful colored, I guess they're called settees, those patio sets that are out in town? Have you noticed those? They are gorgeous.
I believe they are.
There are different colors in town. So thank you, Jake. Thank you, EKG, for those. Karen Caton, whoever is responsible, because they're beautiful. So thank you for that. And thank you, Julie, for looking at the Rescue Squad's books. Appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Davis, for doing that. Thank you again, Tommy, for asking for that. I want to thank Dustin Hall. He is the secretary of the Rescue Squad. We have the executive staff here today from the Rescue Squad, so I just want to acknowledge them. We have Bridget Davis, who is the president of the squad. We also have Carol Broadwater, who is the wait a minute, she's the treasurer. Am I right? Then we have Isaac Broadwater, who is the vice president, and then we have Sean Harmon, who is our new director there. So thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
All right. I'll echo, thank you for all those who showed up today and for those who participated. We're always grateful when folks show interest in local government and participate in such. Speaking of local government, we do have the Small Towns Conference kicking off tomorrow morning. So you'll have a bunch of local elected officials roaming around town for the next 2 days. And a good opportunity for Farmville to continue to show its best side, which we're generally pretty good at. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn if there's no other business to come before us.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.